Allegations that Khan had shared contents of a secret cable sent by the country's ambassador in Washington, D.C. to the government in Islamabad. Khan's party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, said that both Khan and former Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi had been sentenced to 10 years each by a special court. It said the party would challenge the decision and called it a quote-unquote sham case. And joining me is my colleague Amritpal Singh. He's on the phone line with us. Amrit, what's the latest you're picking up on this indictment and conviction of Imran Khan and his ministerial colleague?
Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who was Imran Khan's former foreign minister, and along with Imran Khan, have been sentenced to 10 years for what is called as a cipher case. As you just told our viewers, this case pertains to a cable that was sent to Islamabad by the ambassador of Pakistan to Washington, D.C. Somewhere in 2022. And Imran Khan alleges that this cable proved that there was connivance against him and his government to remove them from power between U.S. State Department officials and the Pakistani embassy there in Washington, D.C. And he alleges the military was also involved in that, and his political opponents were involved in that, in a conspiracy to oust him. But, he has been indicted in this case for leaking the official secrets. So this case relates to an official secret act, and this particular trial was being held on that charge because he made those documents public. He waved those papers at multiple rallies, but Imran Khan denies that and says that whatever was published in the Pakistani media, it wasn't he who leaked that. They got it from other sources, so that was his defense. Of course, he's saying that the trial is sham because his lawyers were not allowed to represent him, and junior counsels were arguing, and he already knew the outcome. And he said, and this is the second time the court has indicted him in the same case. Earlier, last year in October, a court had indicted him, but they went in appeal to the Islamabad High Court, which said that the military trial was, the trial in the jail was erroneous, and they asked for they ordered a retrial. So now this judgment has come in the retrial, which was ordered by the Islamabad High Court. So that is the update on that. Ramesh?
Also, Amrit, very quickly, if you will, how do you look at the implications of this sentencing of Imran Khan? Is it the beginning of the end, as we know it, of Imran Khan's political career? Conversely, does this indictment and sentencing pave the way for Nawaz Sharif's return to power come the elections next month?
Well, we'll have to see what the outcome of the elections is, because Imran Khan still remains a very popular leader in Pakistani politics.
Okay.
But the question is, will the establishment, allow him to contest? He's alleged that there is a pre-vote rigging already going on. And there are reports in various Pakistani media outlets saying that the Election Commission could debar him if he's convicted in this particular case, and other cases which the Election Commission itself is probing of, getting funding which was inappropriate, etc. So the big question is, would there is this big question of would his party be recognized at all? It's lost its symbol. So if he's not allowed to contest, then it looks like a free run for Nawaz Sharif, and we know that the army remains the choice of the army. So in Pakistani politics, the army plays disproportionately a bigger role, and so if that turns out to be the case, then and Imran Khan is disqualified from contesting elections,
right,
then yes, Nawaz Sharif is the front runner. But all said, Imran Khan still remains a popular leader in Pakistan. So we'll have to see how it pans out in the coming days.
All right, Amritpal Singh there reporting on the sentencing of former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan to 10 years in jail for leaking state secrets. Right, moving on, the Israeli army killed 3 terrorists in West Bank's Jenin. Israeli military said they were planning an attack like the 7th October Hamas rampage. The overnight raid came as Israel struck Hezbollah military sites in Lebanon. The strikes were conducted after multiple rockets were launched into Israel from Lebanon. Meanwhile, Israeli troops have dismantled 2 of 4 Hamas battalions in Gaza's Khan Yunis. The units operated above ground and from within underground tunnels as well. An IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, said the army will keep focusing on dismantling the remaining Hamas battalions in Khan Yunis. He said that the Israeli army has so far killed more than 2,000 Palestinian terrorists in Khan Yunis.
In all of Khan Yunis, we have eliminated more than 2,000 terrorists above and beneath the ground. In addition, we destroyed significant underground infrastructure in which we found facilities for holding hostages, command centers, weapons, production facilities, and intelligence material.
In more news from the region, the U.S. military has released photographs of the 3 U.S. troops who were killed in a drone attack on a U.S. base inside Jordan by Iran-backed militants on Sunday. The soldiers were identified as Specialist Kennedy Layden Sanders, 24, Breonna Alexandria Moffett, 23, and Sergeant William Jeremy Rivers, 46. The attack, which wounded dozens of other soldiers, was the first deadly strike against U.S. troops since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October, and marks a major escalation in tensions that have engulfed the region. As attacks by the Houthis on ships in the Red Sea have affected companies and alarmed major world powers, the White House has said the U.S. is not looking for a war with Iran or seeking to escalate the tensions in West Asia in the wake of the recent drone attack on its troops in Jordan. The attack on Sunday killed 3 U.S. soldiers and wounded more than 40 troops. It was the first deadly strike against U.S. troops since the Israel-Hamas war in October.
We are not looking for a war with Iran. We are not seeking a conflict with the regime in a military way. And as I said in the opening, we're not looking to escalate here. This attack over the weekend was escalatory. Make no mistake about it. And it requires a response. Make no mistake about that. I will not get ahead of the president's decision-making.
Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres met with the head of internal UN investigations to ensure that the inquiry into Israeli accusations against staff at the UN Palestinian Aid Agency, UNRWA, will be done swiftly and as efficiently as possible.
The Secretary General has remained very active on this issue throughout the weekend and this morning. A few moments ago, he met with the Undersecretary General, head of OIOS, to ensure that the investigation will be done swiftly and as efficiently as possible. Any employee involved in acts of terror will be held accountable, including through criminal prosecution.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that Washington, D.C. will closely examine steps by the United Nations Aid Agency for Palestinians takes in response to Israeli allegations.
The reports that we got last week, and UNRWA brought them to us, were deeply, deeply troubling. It is imperative that UNRWA immediately, as it said it would, investigate, that it hold people accountable as necessary, and that it review its procedures. I had a very good conversation with Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, last week when we were first made aware of these allegations, And we're going to be looking very hard at the steps that UNRWA takes, again, to make sure that this is fully and thoroughly investigated.
An Israeli intelligence dossier that prompted a cascade of countries to halt funds for a UN Palestinian aid agency includes allegations that some staff took part in abductions and killings during the 7th October raid that sparked the Gaza conflict. The 6-page dossier seen by a news agency alleges that some 190 UNRWA employees, including teachers, have doubled as Hamas or Islamic Jihad militants. It has names and pictures for 11 of them. A UN spokesperson has said the UN has not formally received a copy of the dossier. The Palestinians have accused Israel of falsifying information to tarnish UNRWA, which says it has fired some staffers and is investigating the allegations. The dossier said that one of the 11 is a school counselor who helped his son abduct a woman during the Hamas infiltration, in which Israel says 1,200 people were killed and 253 people kidnapped. In other news, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron will travel to Oman on Tuesday, where he is expected to call for stability over ongoing Houthi attacks in the Red Sea and de-escalating of tensions in West Asia. Cameron, on his 4th visit to the region, will travel to Oman to meet his counterpart Badr al-Busaidi to discuss how to diminish tensions across the region. Cameron will reiterate Britain's commitment to getting aid into Yemen and outline the actions the UK is taking to deter the Houthis from targeting ships in the Red Sea. In an earlier diplomatic tour, Cameron met Israel's Prime Minister, politicians in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, and also traveled to Qatar. Moving on, after ratification by Turkey, Hungary is the only country left effectively holding up Sweden's NATO membership. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said the United States expects Hungary to approve Sweden's NATO accession in the weeks ahead on Monday.
We see that NATO is advancing with a sense of urgency and a strong sense not only of unity of purpose, but unity of action. Just at the very end of last week, Turkey approved Sweden's accession to NATO. Sweden brings tremendous capabilities to the alliance in every domain. Hungary now will have to act in order to complete the process of Sweden's accession, but I fully anticipate that that will happen in the weeks ahead when Hungary's parliament returns.
Right, let me now update you on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó arrived in Ukraine for talks with senior officials on Monday to the western city of Uzhhorod to hold talks with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba and Presidential Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak. Ukraine and Hungary said they had laid the ground for a meeting of their leaders during talks in western Ukraine. Szijjártó arrived in Ukraine days before a European Union summit that will seek agreement on a financial aid package that has been held up by Budapest. Meanwhile, after talks with Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó, top Ukrainian presidential official Andriy Yermak said Ukraine and Hungary are interested in holding a meeting between their leaders as soon as possible. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said the two countries had agreed to form a commission that will prepare proposals on the rights of the ethnic Hungarian minority living in Ukraine. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has retained cordial ties with Russia despite the war between Russia and Ukraine. The Russian and Ukrainian armies remain in a tug-of-war in destroying each other's military targets by waging attacks and offensives on Monday. Russia announced control of a settlement of Tabevka in Kharkov region, while Ukraine attacked Russian personnel and military equipment. Russia's defense ministry said frontline troops successfully repelled 6 attacks in the Zaporizhzhia direction by the Ukrainian armed forces. It said 1 projectile launched by high-mobility artillery rocket systems and 35 Ukrainian drones were shot down by the Russian air defense systems. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in turn said Ukrainian troops launched strikes against 14 areas where Russian personnel, weapons and military equipment were concentrated. The artillery forces attacked 2 Russian air defense systems and an electronic warfare station as well. Still to come on DD India News Hour. North Korea fires multiple cruise missiles in its 3rd such test in less than a week. Vietnam and the Philippines sign a pact on security in the South China Sea. And President Mohamed Muizzu of Maldives faces a fresh domestic political crisis.
What does India Inc. want from the budget?
This is a good time for the government to even look at how it can show its performance, which will lead to predictable economic future of the countries. I would think a lot could happen in terms of even seeing how we can keep the continuance of investment-led growth. Things like uplifting of the rural economy, which is going to be an important area of work to do. I would really see how we are able to enhance rural economy, rural roads, irrigation, storage, warehousing infrastructure.
Marking an end to the wait of nearly 500 years, this moment stays till eternity. January 22nd, 2024. This is the Ayodhya moment, the sacred moment for the devotees of Lord Ram spread across the world.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Updates from the Indo-Pacific now. North Korea has fired multiple cruise missiles into the sea in its third such test in less than a week. South Korean and U.S. intelligence agencies have been closely monitoring the situation amid escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula. Last week, North Korea tested submarine-launched missiles. It's identical to the strategic cruise missiles that Pyongyang launched last week as part of an upgrade to its weapons system.
Our military detected multiple unidentified cruise missiles launched from the North Korea's west coast around 7 a.m. today. And South Korea and the U.S. intelligence authorities are analyzing details. While strengthening surveillance and vigilance, our military is closely cooperating with the United States and monitoring North Korea's activities.
북측 서해상으로 발사된
And DD India's Chris Gilbert has more from Tokyo. Take a listen.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what further details emerge about these most recent missile launches. KCNA, the state media of North Korea, usually provides an overview of what happened about a day later and lets us know if Kim Jong-un was attending and other details like that. But there are two interesting things about this latest flurry of launches that I can see and that experts have been talking to me about. The first is that there is an uptick in military activity coming from North Korea. In 2022, we saw a record year of missile launches from Pyongyang. In 2023, we saw about half of that activity. Now, North Korea always says that it's trying to defend itself, it's working to protect itself, and that its missile tests, are done to that end. At the moment, we are seeing a slight uptick in that activity, suggesting that tensions are rising again on the peninsula. The other interesting thing is that unlike other missile launches we've seen, which have been single ultra-long distance missiles that were launched in 2022, bringing all of the United States within range, we're seeing lots of short-range missiles, anti-submarine missiles fired, either side of the Korean peninsula, suggesting that North Korea is much more focused on its immediate surroundings and its immediate borders at the moment. Well, the solid fuel missile empowers, any country which has it to effectively, store the missile fueled up and to launch it at short notice. And this is meant to be, a threat to the United States, to South Korea, to Japan, that any attacks or perceived acts of aggression against North Korea can be responded to, strongly with the nuclear capabilities, but also swiftly They won't need to fuel up their missiles before they fire them. They can be effectively ready to fire at any time. It needs to be remembered that North Korea and South Korea are in a state of war, and they have been in a state of war since 1950. But experts question whether it's in any either country's interest to begin provocations again, especially not North Korea, as it's significantly outgunned. And looking ahead into the future, there's of course a wild card hanging above all of this, which is the US elections, and questions about what would happen if, for example, Donald Trump was to return to the presidency of the US. Experts have said to me that that would throw everything up in the air all over again. So the situation as we know it might not be the situation a few months from now, depending what happens in those elections.
And staying in the region, Hong Kong's Chief Executive John Lee confirmed on Tuesday his intention to tighten the national security laws. The push to tighten the security law outlines a need for new and updated laws covering the theft of state secrets, espionage, treason, sedition and sabotage to conduct actions endangering national security. With intentions to build on sweeping legislation Beijing imposed on the city in 2020, saying the government will attempt to pass the laws as soon as possible.
I hope we can expedite the legislation of Article 23 as soon as possible. Putting an end to this issue that has plagued Hong Kong for 26 years will allow us to focus our attention on economic development, enabling citizens to enjoy more economic benefits at an earlier time. Our legislation, of course, is a subject to scrutiny by both Hong Kong people and, of course, the international people.
A 110-page consultation document would be submitted to the Legislative Council on Tuesday afternoon, and the consultation would end on the 28th of February. Business diplomats and academics say the prospect of new laws targeting espionage, state secrets and foreign influence could have a deep and lasting impact on the global financial hub. Vietnam and the Philippines agreed to boost cooperation among their coast guards and to prevent untoward incidents in the South China Sea. The announcement was made during a state visit to Hanoi by President Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines. The two memoranda of understanding on security covered incident prevention in the South China Sea and maritime cooperation among their coast guards. Vietnam also sealed agreements with the Philippines covering rice trade and agriculture cooperation. In more news from the Indo-Pacific, South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol blocked a bill to launch a new investigation into the 2022 Halloween crowd rush in Seoul's Itaewon district. Yoon's veto of a probe with an independent panel came after the Prime Minister described the opposition-backed bill as politicized and potentially in breach of the Constitution. The move to block the bill has been criticized by relatives of the victims and opposition party officials who have long argued the government's handling of the disaster had been inadequate. A mother who lost a son in the crowd rush accused the government of being petty by blocking the inquiry and offering financial compensation instead. Thailand's Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi jointly attended a ceremony held in Bangkok for the signing of an agreement for the export of Thai agricultural products to China. The Chinese side appreciated the Thai leader's decision to visit China as his first country outside the Association of Southeast Asian Nations after taking office. Leaders of the two countries have drawn up a blueprint for the building of a Thai-China community, opening a new chapter in bilateral friendly cooperation. Thavisin stressed Thailand's firm commitment to the One China principle. Wang spoke about the need for both sides to build the Belt and Road Initiative and speed up the construction of a China-Thailand railway. A significant setback for Maldives' President Mohamed Muizzu, the main opposition party of the Maldives, the Maldivian Democratic Party, has initiated impeachment motion against the president. The Ibrahim Soleh-led Maldivian Democratic Party, alongside the Democrats, led by Mohamed Nasheed, have collected signatures from 55 lawmakers, one short of the required 56 votes provided by the Constitution and Parliament's standing orders for impeachment. The opposition parties have voiced concern regarding the foreign policy direction of the current Maldives government. They've also criticized the administration for what they perceive as a shift towards an anti-India stance. And joining me is my colleague Ahmed Moin Faruqi in Colombo. Ahmed, have the opposition moved an impeachment motion against President Muizzu yet? And fill us in on the latest.
Ramesh, as of now, the information that we have is that the impeachment motion has not yet been presented before the Majlis. However, the parliamentary group has issued a 3-line whip, a very important kind of a development that the 3-line whip has been issued to the members of MDP with regard to the impeachment process. And beyond that, the details of the impeachment motion, when it will be introduced and what will be the timelines, that have not yet been disclosed by MDP as yet. However, we are still waiting for the details. Whenever they are issued to us, we will share it with our audiences, Ramesh.
Also, a Maldives parliamentary election is due in March. So is there a timeline in mind for the impeachment? Also, will it influence the election result?
Yes, Ramesh, you see, that is a very big question as of now. You see, 17th of March is the scheduled date for the parliamentary elections. That will also be during the first week of the month of Ramadan, which is the holy month for the Muslims across the world. The current situation is that as per Article 100 of the Maldives Constitution, there is a requirement that once the Majlis has been presented with the motion, a select committee would be nominated, which will look into the charges, and then thereafter a 14-day time would be given to the president so that he would be in a position to reply or take the help of a council and to contest the charges. Thereafter, the motion would be put to vote. Now, considering all these things, timelines, it is a little tight as of now with regard to a possibility with regard to how it will be taken forward. But you never know. It is still a game of uncertainties as of now. Once the MDP comes out with a clear plan, then we'll get to know what exactly is on the cards as of now.
Indeed, as I say, watch this space. Ahmed Moin Faruqi in Colombo, thank you for now. Appreciate it. And now to take a look at some more stories making news around the world. A huge fire broke out in a chicken farm in the U.S. state of Texas. Several fire departments battled to douse the massive plumes of black smoke engulfing the region. The cause of the fire remained unclear, but it posed no immediate threat to the public as there were no concerns over hazardous materials. Emergency response units from several counties provided mutual assistance. Protests in Peru are blocking access to Machu Picchu, one of South America's most popular heritage sites. The locals are protesting against a new ticketing system which has halted rail transport to the iconic Incan site, leaving many tourists stranded. Train services have been suspended since Saturday because of safety concerns and were still not reopened on Monday. And still to come on DD India News Hour. An expert take on India's growth projections on the eve of the country's 2024 budget. And an Indian Navy warship rescues 19 Pakistani sailors after pirates hijack vessel off the coast of Somalia.
Marking an end to the wait of nearly 500 years, this moment stays till eternity. January 22nd, 2024. This is the Ayodhya moment, the sacred moment for the devotees of Lord Ram spread across the world.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. US billionaire Elon Musk's company successfully implants a chip inside the human brain. It enables control of an electronic device just by thinking. Indian warship rescues 19 Pakistani sailors after pirates hijacked vessel off the coast of Somalia. It has thwarted a similar piracy attempt on Monday. And India remembers Mahatma Gandhi on his 76th death anniversary. President Draupadi Murmu leads the nation in paying tribute to the father of the nation. India can aspire to become a $7 trillion economy by the year 2030. Now, this is what a review by the Indian Finance Ministry has said. Our next report gets you more details.
Ahead of the interim budget, a report by India's Finance Ministry has said the country can aspire to become a $7 trillion economy by 2030. The report, titled The Indian Economy, a Review, also noted that financial year 2024 marks the third successive year of over 7% growth of the Indian economy. That too when the global economy is growing around 3%. That's not all. India is the world's third largest fintech market, and this year it overtook Hong Kong to become the world's fourth largest stock market. The report also highlighted factors that have bolstered the economy. There has been a surge in public sector expenditure in the last 10 years. The same period also witnessed a greater inclusive development and a significant reduction in unemployment. Reforms rolled out by the government helped banks strengthen their balance sheets. Investment incentives have created a startup ecosystem. Government's COVID management and robust vaccination drive helped the economy return to a high growth path. Global praise for the Indian economy in the recent times is a testament to this report. World Economic Forum President Borge Brende said that India is a 10 trillion economy in the making. According to Barclays, the country will remain the world's fastest growing economy in near term, while S&P said that India is set to overtake Japan as third largest economy by 2030. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining me is Dr. Arvind Virmani. He is a member of Niti Aayog. For those of you who are joining us from around the world, Niti is an abbreviation for National Institution for Transforming India, and Aayog is Hindi for Commission. The Niti Aayog is the apex public policy think tank of Indian government dealing with economic policy making. Dr. Virmani is a former executive director of the International Monetary Fund and chief economic advisor to India's Ministry of Finance. Dr. Virmani, welcome to DD India. Now, first off the mark, what does India's Finance Ministry say in the report titled Indian Economy, a Review? What stood out for you in that report?
Yeah. So, from our perspective, really, the issue is how to maintain fast, inclusive growth over long periods. So, as you can see, and as your report just pointed out, that is one important focus of this review. So, there's kind of two ways to look at it for your general observer. One is in terms of the forecast, and the uncertainties around it for the next year and perhaps for the next few years. And the other is in terms of the opportunities, threats, etc., which the government policy, government actions will be addressing, have addressed and will address to make this goal come true. You mentioned some numbers, of course, numbers are part of that. So what is it? So we know that the last 2 years have been characterized by a number of shocks, risks, and great uncertainty. Of course, before that 2 years, we have pandemic, which the world shared. But despite that, we have kind of maintained, as you mentioned, a growth rate of 7% or higher. So, and it quickly, if we go back, it's really, we had projected, I had projected, others had projected a growth rate of 7% plus minus over these 2 years. But then the Ukraine war happened. And then many people, including myself, reduced the forecast by 0.5. But we have been surprised, right? So my range was 6 to 7%. And as you pointed out, we've had 7.2%. So that's an interesting aspect. And I'll mention only one thing. One of the most important drivers of that was the change in the budget to increase the capital expenditures. That's been a huge driver of growth, and economic analysis has shown that's because the expenditure multiplier of the Indian government on capital expenditures is very high. It's about 2.5%. So very sound economic policies. That's the thrust of it. The second one aspect which is addressed there and is important is kind of the opportunities and threats. The biggest opportunity, and the report gives some emphasis on that, is the change in the global trading system. Some people call it deglobalization, de-risking, or whatever, the geopolitics and the geoeconomics, which actually, from my perspective, overall provides a great opportunity. And that opportunity in supply chains, the government has done a number of things, including the PLI, the move to make FTAs with developed countries, etc., so that we make full use of this opportunity. And then, of course, lastly, just to complete this point, is that the threats. Oil prices are always a threat. So that whole solar move is very good. There were threat of physical aggression, and the Atmanirbhar defense production is designed to address it and turn it into an opportunity.
Dr. Virmani, as a report there mentioned, the document bases its forecast on certain recent and future structural reforms. Would you like to elaborate on what those reforms are or might be going forward?
Yeah. Right. So this is something which I think is underappreciated. I have been talking about it since 2019, and a whole bunch of reforms, and they're very systematic. That is what I emphasize. After the 1991 reforms, I believe that these are the most important set of reforms. Of course, everybody has heard of IBC, GST, but after that, when the pandemic occurred, the government used it as an opportunity. So, there is this expression that don't let a crisis grow to waste. And government has systematically gone through products, factor markets, what we economists call, like labor market, capital market, etc. The report emphasizes the capital market, but it's across the board. And I'll just give, whether it's government expenditures, you name it, the government has every sector, every market, they've tried to find the where reforms are needed and do it. One important one which has already seen success is the space sector and the defense sector. So in the space sector, a whole bunch of private companies have come up which are among the best. They are competing now even with US companies. So like that, the reforms systematic across the board, filling the gaps where earlier reforms had not been adequate or not equal. And it's very clear the government recognizes, we recognize that there will have to be continuing reforms. Mm-hmm. There are areas which are not complete. We've all talked about a lot of EODB reforms have occurred, but more are needed. So like that, I'm sure that new challenges will arise and these reforms will continue, including tax reforms, for example.
Right. Dr. Virmani, the report says there is no need for an artificial fiscal stimulus to growth because the economy is in robust health. Why don't you break it down for the benefit of our viewers? What does it mean in simple terms?
Right. Yeah. Right. So in these last 4 years of continuing shocks, etc., what the approach of government has been, given the relatively high debt ratios that we have, is to do targeted interventions. So where it was very necessary, for example, providing free food for the people affected by the pandemic, the budget was very generous. But otherwise, the idea has to be to increase the quality of the budget by increasing, relative to the overall budget, the share of capital expenditures. So that has been very effective, actually so effective that for the first time my kind of range of forecast was exceeded. As I mentioned earlier, I did not expect growth to be higher than 7%, but this stimulus which was given through the budget in terms of capital expenditures actually exceeded my expectations. I'm just saying that as a simple example.
Sure.
So I don't think that's needed anymore. I think more important to plug the gaps in the reforms. Yeah.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Virmani, but the report says unemployment is low and women's participation in the economy is higher than before, but there remain some challenges such as slowing trade, malnutrition, quality of education, and artificial intelligence, among others. Your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of issues there. I could talk for an hour about it. Let me pick out a few. So unemployment, if we look at the PLFS, it shows that the worker population ratio has increased between 2017-18 and the latest available estimate for 22-23. It's a trend. There are, of course, lots of fluctuations. We know we've already talked about some of the shocks which have happened. So there is a lot of fluctuation. But if you see over this 5 to 7 year period, there is a clear increase in the worker population ratio, which means that more and more people are employed, more than the people entering the workforce, so to say. That is what the worker population ratio says. The second aspect which goes with it is the wages. Some people say, okay, maybe more people are employed, but the overall wages have declined. They are worse off on average. But that's not true. So if you look at the same data and break it down by the 3 categories which I have done, as self-employed, casual labor, and salaried workers, it turns out that the self-employed, between these 2 endpoints, the wages have grown, real wages have grown the fastest, about 4%. And for casual labor, they've grown by around 3% per annum over the same period in real terms, that is deflated for inflation. It's really the salaried employees because of all these disruptions which have not grown so fast. And very quickly, I mean, I could go through each of them, but the female labor force, there is now a study using the PLFS by Dr. Goldar and so on, which has shown that the rural and the economic survey, the survey you mentioned confirms this, but there's already a study which shows that women's participation has gone up quite a lot in the rural areas, surprisingly, because the males are kind of giving up these, getting work in other places, like in urban areas, etc. So migration, change in occupation, etc., is partly resulting in great opportunities. And of course, all the programs done by the government so that the women's participation has gone up. I mean, I could address each of the other issues, but it's up to you if you have the time.
Fair enough. And finally, Dr. Virmani, since we are speaking on the eve of the budget, I have to ask you this. What do you expect from the 2024 budget? Do we have a wish list?
So the way I look at the budget, you know, this will be a budget of a government which expects to be back in the government after 6 months or whatever. So it will be framed in that context, is my guess. Okay. So what does that mean? One, the Part A obviously will have some review of the past achievements of the government and some kind of an indication of what is likely to do, you know, over the next 5 years or so. And Part 2, I would say there's a 50-50 chance. I'm being very honest to your observers. I would say 50-50 chance. One would be kind of a routine, you know, make sure nothing is disrupted, vote on account type of budget. And the other possibility, 50%, is some real surprises which nobody has guessed.
All right, on that note, Dr. Arvind Virmani, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. In some more business news, India witnessed a 22.24% surge in electronic exports, surpassing the $20 billion milestone within the 9 months of the financial year 23-24. Mobile phone exports, accounting for 52% of total electronic exports, reached $10.5 billion between April and December of 2023. Notably, iPhones emerged as a primary driver of exports, contributing 35% of the total electronic exports and a staggering 70% overall mobile exports during this period. Space corporation Airbus is willing to invest in India to accelerate the production of sustainable aviation fuel. Qantas Airways, Airbus and the Queensland government had in March 2023 announced a collaboration to invest in a biofuel production facility. Airbus and Qantas will jointly be investing $1.34 million in this project. India is in a unique position as the production of biofuel and in particular SAF can be a new industry for it, not just for domestic consumption, but also for exports to regions such as Europe and Oceania. India recorded a significant uptick in electric vehicle sales in 23, with volumes surpassing 1.5 million, marking a 50% increase from the previous year. The total EV sales reached 1.53 million in 2023, up from 1.02 million in 2022, indicating a strong growth trajectory in the adoption of enterprise value, reflecting a growing consumer preference for electric vehicles over a 2-year period. According to category-wise data, two-wheelers and three-wheelers experienced growth of 37% and 66% respectively. The passenger vehicle segment also saw a significant growth. The industry outlook for 24 remains optimistic, with sales expected to exceed 2 million units. A national conference on strategic trade controls was organized by the Directorate General of Foreign Trade at New Delhi's Vigyan Bhavan on Tuesday. It was attended by various experts in foreign trade. Industry leaders share their experiences related to the export of dual-use goods and technologies during the conference. A booklet on India's strategic trade controls was also unveiled at the event. Commerce Secretary Sunil Barthwal reiterated India's commitment to adhering to international regulatory standards concerning global trade.
We have leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who always believed in non-violence. We have the philosophies which believe in non-violence and peace for the humanity. And India is a very major player in this fight against terrorism. India is a very major player to see that these technologies are used by the right people and these technologies do not get into the hands of the wrong people.
Egypt is exploring possibility of issuing bonds in Emirati dirhams, Indian rupees and Hong Kong dollars, marking a novel approach to diversifying its financing strategy. On the sidelines of the Asian Financial Forum in Hong Kong, Egypt's Minister of Finance Mohammed Maiz highlighted ongoing talks with Hong Kong's Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury with regard to prospects for issuing bonds in Hong Kong dollars. The initiative, aimed at exploring multiple markets, investors and financing tools, is in line with the government's broader efforts to adopt a more varied financial approach. He highlighted recent successful ventures, including the issuance of $750 million in green bonds and $1.5 billion in sovereign sukuk. In other news, Indian Navy's warship Sumitra has carried out another successful anti-piracy operation off the east coast of Somalia. The INS Sumitra rescued fishing vessel Al Naimi and her crew, including 19 Pakistani nationals, from 11 armed Somali pirates after intercepting the vessel on Monday. The Indian Navy's indigenous offshore patrol vessel had been deployed for anti-piracy and maritime security operations east of Somalia and Gulf of Eden. The INS Sumitra, over the course of less than 36 hours, has rescued 2 hijacked fishing vessels along with 36 crew, 17 Iranian and 19 Pakistani, in the southern Arabian Sea, and has prevented misuse of these fishing vessels as mothership for further acts of piracy on merchant vessels. In a tragic incident, an Indian student studying at Indiana's Purdue University in the U.S. has been found dead in the university campus in the U.S. Neil Acharya, a computer science and data science student, had been missing since 28th of January, following which his mother had taken to social media to request information about his whereabouts. As per her post on X, he was last seen by the Uber driver who dropped him off in Purdue University. The Consulate General of India in Chicago responded to a post extending all possible support and help to the family. University officials confirmed the death on Monday in an email. The cause of the death was not revealed. Acharya's death comes shortly after the tragic death of another Indian student, Vivek Saini, an MBA student in Georgia, who was brutally attacked and killed by a homeless man. Elon Musk, Neuralink's billionaire founder, said the first human received an implant from the brain chip startup on Sunday and is recovering well, in a post on social media platform X on Monday. The first product from Neuralink would be called telepathy. The study uses a robot to surgically place a brain-computer interface implant in a region of the brain that controls the intention to move. The study will assess the functionality of the interface, which enables people with paralysis of all four limbs to control devices with their thoughts, according to the company's website. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration had given the company clearance last year to conduct its first trial to test its implant on humans. In September, Neuralink said it received approval for recruitment for the human trial for paralysis patients. Back home, an interfaith prayer meeting was organized on Tuesday at Gandhi Smriti as the nation observed the 76th death anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. President Draupadi Murmu led the country in paying tributes to the father of the nation. President Murmu attended the prayer meeting and laid a wreath at Mahatma Gandhi's memorial at Rajghat in New Delhi. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar paid floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi on his death anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and other leaders also paid floral tributes to the father of the nation. The day is also observed as Martyrs' Day. Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated on this day in the year 1948. India's President Draupadi Murmu has nominated Chandigarh University Chancellor Satnam Singh Sandhu to the upper house of the country's parliament. Sandhu is one of India's leading educationists and he is actively involved in large-scale community efforts to improve health and wellness and also to advance communal harmony through his two NGOs, Indian Minorities Foundation and New India Development Foundation. Prime Minister Modi has expressed happiness as on Satnam Singh Sandhu's nomination to the Rajya Sabha. In a social media post, the Prime Minister said, "I am delighted that Rashtrapati Ji has nominated Shri Satnam Singh Sandhu Ji to the Rajya Sabha. Satnam Ji has distinguished himself as a noted educationist and social worker who has been serving people at the grassroots in different ways. He has always worked extensively to further national integration and has also worked with the Indian diaspora. I wish him the very best for his parliamentary journey and am confident the Rajya Sabha proceedings will be enriched by his views," unquote. And now take a look at some other stories making news in India. Ahead of India's interim budget of session of Parliament, the government held a meeting with leaders from various political parties on Tuesday in New Delhi. The meeting was a customary practice ahead of every parliamentary session. The budget session will begin on Wednesday and will continue till the 9th of next month. A maiden flight under the Udan RCS initiative takes off in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand. India's Minister for Civil Aviation, Jyotiraditya Scindia, virtually participated in its launch. The flight route connects state's top tourist spots, Dehradun and Pithoragarh, and will operate 3 times a week. Former Bihar Deputy Chief Minister and Rashtriya Janata Dal leader Tejasvi Yadav arrived at the Enforcement Directorate office in Patna on Tuesday. The probe agency is questioning him in connection with the Land for Jobs case. Now, this comes after RJD Supremo Lalu Prasad Yadav was questioned for more than 10 hours related to the case on Monday. Dramatic developments are taking place in India's Delhi and Jharkhand as Enforcement Directorate officials look to question Chief Minister of Jharkhand, Hemant Soren, in a money laundering case. The agency searched the residence of the leader in New Delhi on Monday and camped there in order to question him, linked to an alleged land scam, while official sources were claiming that Mr. Soren was untraceable. Some sports updates now. The International Cricket Council on Tuesday released the latest women's T20I bowling rankings. India's Deepti Sharma has climbed to join second place, while Indian pacer Renuka Singh also ascended to the 10th spot. England's Sophie Ecclestone continued to dominate the T20I rankings for bowlers. There were no changes in the top 10 of the all-rounders rankings, with Deepti holding on to the 4th position. In the batting rankings, India's vice-captain Smriti Mandhana maintained her 4th position, leading among Indian players. Jemimah Rodrigues, Shafali Verma and Harmanpreet Kaur retained their 13th, 16th and 17th positions, respectively. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.